Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DirectXbox. We have a bit of a change here in the look of the show, mostly because we listened to the people, and the people said we want video, we want a more dynamic looking podcast in video form. So I went out, made some changes, and here we are. I think this is actually going to add quite a bit to the show, and I'm pretty excited to go through today's show because we have some good topics, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with all these features and stuff. But of course, I am joined by the co-host of the show, Nate the Hate.
Yes, it's almost a relaunch of sorts here for the show with this new branding. And as you said, we have a lot to go over this week. It has been a very exciting week for the world of Xbox. We had a new release this week from Microsoft internal studios, and a lot of news came forth this week. So a lot to go over.
Yes. So you can, of course, see there, spawncastnetwork.com. If you're catching this early on Patreon, thank you very much for the support and being part of the network. Otherwise, you can check us out there, spawncastnetwork.com or patreon.com/spawncast. This is DirectXbox, our show that is dedicated to Microsoft and their Xbox system. You can also catch this on audio podcast platforms and everything as it goes live, of course, with Patreon members and subscribers getting the show early, and we also will have bonus shows coming up as we go along where we can answer all of your questions and what have you. So exciting stuff there, but we have, as Nate mentioned, quite a bit tonight to discuss, where we will be going over the FTC stuff because it does appear that they are moving in to close. We did have some games, as Nate mentioned. Forza Motorsport is out. Assassin's Creed Mirage also out. And we had some stuff to talk about with Game Pass, Microsoft in Japan, Hideo Kojima. So why don't we start though at the top here, Nate? I did want to at least recognize this because I think this is, of course, big for FromSoft since they are on this level of, we kind of expect this sales figure from them now when they put out their typical Souls games. And that is that Sekiro has crossed the 10 million mark. And Nate told me something that I had to kind of double take at. Nate, you go ahead and confess.
Yes, I have not yet played Sekiro.
That's kind of mind blowing, to be honest. I mean, 10 million sold. It is a very good game. It's a different kind of Souls game. People have said it's more of a rhythm game. I tend to agree. I played through it, beat the boss at the end. The achievement did not pop, and I have not gone back and beat it again.
Are you
because
sure you beat it?
I mean, I saw the credits and everything, and no dice, no achievement. And I've been sitting here I have the save file right before the boss. I've been sitting there with it. And I'm like, the problem is I got away from it. If I go back to it now, the boss will just destroy me. I have to relearn the game again. So I might do that just to get it. But I've been sitting here looking at it since, really since it came out because I went through it pretty quick. But I recommend it. I think it's still an awesome game. And maybe it'll end up in Game Pass, Nate. You can play it then.
Yeah, if it comes to Game Pass, I'll definitely give it a look. I am a big fan of FromSoft games. Recently played through Armored Core. It was a fantastic game, probably one of the best games of 2023. And I'm still going through Lies of P. So I'm definitely a fan of those Souls-like games, but Sekiro is just one that I didn't give a look when it originally launched. And if it does come to Game Pass when the ABK Microsoft deal is complete, definitely will be a day one download for me and give it a look and see how it is.
Also, that final boss was really annoying. It took me 30 tries to beat it. It wasn't clicking with me. There were some bosses I beat in 2 or 3 tries. That final one, though, the rhythm of it, I don't know, something was just throwing me off the whole way. So it was one of those moments where I actually almost broke a controller because the achievement didn't pop. And I'm like, no one's going to believe that I finally beat this thing after not hours, but days of trying.
Well, you have no proof.
I know. I maybe I will do it just because I am like that stubborn gamer who will play through a bad game just to play through it. That seems like something I should go back and resolve then. But I'm not going to get the 1,000 achievement score. I'm not doing all that I don't typically do that with Souls games anyway. I get in, I get out. So
yeah, you really have to be an exceptional Souls game or a player to really go for the platinum. I thought about going for the platinum in Demon Souls. I think I'm just 3 trophies shy of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But they're kind of the tedious ones where you have to get all the miracles, you have to get all the rings, And I don't want to play through the game 3 or 4 times, so I have enough of the boss souls to then make into the miracle spell. I was like, I just can't do that. And even with Armored Core, the game encourages you to replay the game multiple times. And you want to get the S rank on all the different mission types. And as much as I did enjoy the game, I just can't see myself replaying the game 3 or 4 times solely for the achievements. It's definitely going to be a game I pick up again in the near future once the upcoming release schedule kind of lightens up. But there's just too many games to play right now for me to replay Armored Core for a third, fourth, or fifth time to see all the missions, get all the different type of, weapons and armored cores and such. But yeah, Sekiro, definitely something I'll give a look once the day comes, if it comes to Game Pass, that is.
Okay. Let's shift our attention over to Japan with Xbox, because of course, we did see Microsoft, Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond. They were in full attendance at Tokyo Game Show. They were meeting with different fans there. They were, I'm sure, talking to all kinds of publishers and developers. I'm sure quite a few backroom deals that we didn't hear about as well. But they were actually talking about things like big budget Japanese releases from Microsoft, seemingly working to fund some of these projects. And in fact, during an interview, they were asked about Japanese creators being part of Microsoft Game Studios, as Phil Spencer said, of course, referring to Tango Gameworks, and saying you can count on it when discussing big budget Japanese games, similar, or at least in the same vein of a Blue Dragon or a Lost Odyssey. What do you think, Nate? Do you think we'll actually see that, or is this just kind of like marketing speak, posturing a bit, that kind of thing?
I think it might be a blend of the two. Because what his statement was by saying, like, yeah, we're going to see some of those internal Japanese games in the vein of Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey will be true, because we know they're partnered with Hideo Kojima. We know you have Tango Gameworks. So yes, we will have Japanese developed first-party games coming to the Xbox in the future. Now, what does that mean in terms of genre type and prestige? That remains to be seen. We know what Tango can do. They started off the year exceptionally strong with Hi-Fi Rush, and then they brought Ghostwire Tokyo to Xbox a few months later. And now we're eagerly anticipating what their next game will be. And we really don't know much about what Kojima's project is going to be, how it's going to look, how it will play, but it's Hideo Kojima, so you definitely have attention on it, and you have that bit of wonder of what can he deliver as an exclusive Xbox game. But beyond that, we're really left in a world of unknown. Will Microsoft further seek out acquisitions in the Japanese market to bring into first-party studios, or are we strictly talking about these two, studios for the Japanese support from Microsoft? So the statement, while true, I think it is a bit of posturing just to cater to that Japanese audience that they were speaking to, given it was Tokyo Game Show, to say, hey, we are going to make games that cater to your market, while also giving the Western audience something to look forward to with, Hideo Kojima. And I would say Tango is pretty well respected now in all markets. But you do have that bit of concern now that Shinji Mikami has departed the studio, and you have to wonder, what is the future for the studio in terms of leadership and even direction when it comes to games?
Yeah, I wonder if he's talking about Tango Gameworks specifically as basically a studio within Microsoft. And that seemed to be the real question was, hey, you're going out to Square Enix, you're going out to Sega, and you're basically buying their games and putting it on your service. But when does the actual Microsoft studios, when do they start creating those kind of games? And can you do that? I mean, Phil Spencer's saying, yes, we can do that. Can they, though? That's kind of my thing. Would they put those kind of resources in to make that happen? Or would they look to even buy a studio that's native to Japan and bring them on board? I mean, Tango Gameworks kind of just came with Bethesda, right?
Mm-hmm.
That just sort of was there. It's like, okay, cool. Will they make that kind of a move and go do that? Like, I know Mistwalker has changed a bit, but I mean, would they at least partner with them and work on something like a spiritual successor to Lost Odyssey, or just a new JRPG or something? That's my big question. That's kind of the prove it moment there, if they would do something like that.
Yeah, it's hard to say right now because the Microsoft of today is very different from the Microsoft that was during the Xbox 360 generation that actively sought out those types of Japanese games, Blue Dragon, Lost Odyssey, Ninja Gaiden. And now we're in that Microsoft era where they seem to be more, I don't want to say risk adverse, but they want to cater to a very specific audience, though they are trying to expand, especially with the Japanese audience. And that's where you have Sega, Atlas, Square Enix, all those deals being made to say, we do have the games that cater to you, and we're willing to go out and spend to make this a reality. But there's a huge gulf of difference between going to Sega or Square Enix and making a Game Pass deal versus investing hundreds of millions of dollars into actively developing a game exclusively for your platform, or contracting a studio like Mistwalker or even Bandai Namco and securing a Tales of game as an exclusive, because they did that during the 360 generation as
It's
well with Tales of
true.
Vesperia, and they also had Eternal Sonata as a exclusive for
Oh, what
quite
about
some time.
Infinite Undiscovery? They were
Yeah.
on fire in that early 360 generation.
Yeah, they were a very ambitious company at that time because they knew they needed that worldwide audience and they were willing to spend. Now, with Game Pass as their, pretty much their focus, maybe they return to that thought where they say, we have to invest as heavily as we can to really reach that worldwide audience. So, if they could contract a company like a Mistwalker again and secure a meaningful exclusive from them, it would do wonders for the Xbox name and really put their brand in, the minds of the Japanese audience as well as Western gamers who cater to those style of games. Because Japanese RPGs and really any Japanese developed game definitely gets a lot of attention in the Western markets, sometimes more so than in native Japan. I'm sure Microsoft is looking at this and having those types of conversations. It's just a question of, if they're having the conversations now in the second half of 2023, when would this really bear fruit? At the end of the generation? Could this
Yeah,
be them
probably.
sowing the seeds for the coming generation where they could have stronger support? Because right now, they've definitely made advances. Having Persona on the Xbox is nothing short of miraculous. And you've seen virtually every Yakuza or Like a Dragon game come to the Xbox or Game Pass. And that's where Microsoft is really making advancements and bettering their relationship with prominent Japanese companies.
I think they could go out, maybe even just grab something really quick like Fantasian that would kind of give them a leg up a bit because it's not on other systems. But they do need to start working out some stuff more in house, I would say, if they really want to get serious. But Tango Gameworks, I'm sure, has something going right now. That I feel like Microsoft, after seeing Hi Fi Rush, that's the moment where you back up the truck. So I'd like to think that they did that. And you're right. We'll see at the end of the generation at this rate how long it takes to make a game nowadays. But
Yeah.
I would like to see them take another shot with Mistwalker, even as a partnership thing, just to see if they can they can produce something. I mean, close to Lost Odyssey was really cool, but it went under the radar. But if they produce something unique like that, then maybe they work to bring them in and actually buy them, like acquire them. Because Mistwalker, I'm
Mhm.
sure, is a studio that's pretty consistently living on the edge. So they would probably be
Yeah.
psyched to be comfortable in terms of financials and the ability to be more
Mhm.
creative in general with providing for Game Pass.
Yeah, knowing how Microsoft is a very hands-off company when it comes to the studios they acquire, that could be a good fit for a company like Mistwalker if they are looking to be, actually acquired. And now with the news with Platinum Games and Hideki Kamiya
Mm.
parting, you have to wonder, will Microsoft go to Kamiya and potentially offer a contract to give him a studio or even just bring him in? Because there is a little friction with their relationship going back to Scalebound, so maybe it is an impossibility. But you have to kind of wonder if there is at least a conversation being had between the two parties, because Kamiya is a name. He's a talented individual who has directed some of the most iconic games in gaming, and Microsoft is looking to expand in the Japanese market. So if the two could come together, that could potentially be a power play for Microsoft, but it is a high risk, high reward type scenario. You could bring him on and he may never produce anything of note. And you can look at other iconic Japanese developers. You could look at Yuji Naka, who really hasn't done much since Sonic. You have the individual from Ninja Gaiden. You made a duo of fantastic games, went on and created Devil's Third. So will Kamiya continue to produce quality, or is he really just a name you would bring on for recognition and then kind of have that back fear of maybe his better days are behind him?
Is the door open for Scalebound then? If they bring Kamiya in-house and it isn't like, oh, we're gonna contract this out to you and we'll see you in 3 years and check up on you. If they brought him in-house, basically own internal studio, he ran and everything, do you think Scalebound could come back?
I mean,
that would be crazy if this is the path to that happening, is Kamiya and Platinum falling out and he shows up and is like, let's do it.
Like, let's go. I want to make that game. I'm gonna show them what they're missing out on, and you guys can make it a reality.
It's unique. I mean, it'd be a unique game for Game Pass at the very least. They funded worse.
They have. I mean, that's true, but it's definitely an interesting time to watch Microsoft in Japan. As said, they've made great strides already this generation. So if they continue to go this path and they're seeing their investment pay dividends, it only means it's going to get stronger as things go on. And Kamiya could be that power play.
That's a freebie for a one more thing at the end of like E3 when they're closing up. We got one more thing to show, and they're going through it, and people are like, "Is this?" And it's like director or producer coming from Hideki Kamiya flashed on screen. That would get people talking at the very least.
Oh yeah, it'd get people a lot of talking. I mean, picture that type of June showcase. If you had Persona 6 show up, you have Kojima show off his game, and then you end with directed by Hideki Kamiya. People would be sitting there saying, "Whoa, what is Microsoft up to?" And that would generate a lot of excitement. Maybe a little too late into the generation, but it gives you hope of what could be in the coming future.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to ask Nate. This is just a fun question that I always see posed and brought up, and it was something we kind of discussed a little bit with the controller that Microsoft is allegedly working on internally. And that is, do we use AA batteries or a play and charge kit, rechargeable batteries even, for Xbox controllers? Because it's still the last holdout with these AA batteries. This is it, the Xbox controller. And it might be done soon with that revision that we saw.
No, I use rechargeable AA batteries.
Okay.
I like having that option available to me. It is far superior than what Sony and Nintendo offer, because if that battery ever swells or anything, you're kind of stuck. This way I have full control over how I, power my controller. So I think that's a smart way for Microsoft.
The Pro controller isn't too bad to get to the battery. The Joy-Con is, I will admit. That's not something people want to do. You can strip the screws really easily and all of this. But I have a nice dock here for my controllers for the Xbox. Got a nice spot here. It has like pins on the back that contact, and you just drop it on there, and that's it. And it just charges it. Haven't had to think about changing batteries in my controller for years now. That's the move right there. I don't know who made this. I don't know. It doesn't have an obvious branding on it now that I'm looking at it. But I think I got it off Amazon for like $20. So
that's a pretty good price.
I've always had, what's funny is I've always had a play and charge kit for the Xbox. Going back to the Xbox 360, the ones where we plug them in at the top and you had like the big bulky batteries.
Yep.
Always had it. Always. And those batteries were terrible. They would constantly need to be replaced. So that's how it was. I never really used AA's like that. So in fact, when I open up a new controller, if you bought a new one and it came with AA's, I would just throw them in a drawer, still packaged in like the plastic.
That's a good 35 hours of free gaming right there.
I'm ready for them to get rid of it. Although if they go the route they're talking about, that's still the best way because people can use it. Funny enough, that's what 8-Bit Do's been doing this whole time. They're all finally catching up to 8-Bit Do. So there you go.
Well, I like my AA.
Let us know in the comments, team AA or team rechargeable play and charge.
Hey, as long as we have the best of both worlds, I think that's a win.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's just the controller that they are producing. I think looks pretty cool. I'd actually rather have that right now than the revised Xbox Series X and S. I want that controller. It looks nice. Let's move over to Microsoft, expecting to close the Activision Blizzard deal, and this news actually broke right at the end of this week, where apparently things are going smoothly with the CMA. They're looking to get this. They got like the pre-approval from them, which to me basically was them signaling, hey, go ahead and start getting all your stuff in order, signed, dotted, because we're going to approve this thing. And, as soon as that comes through, Microsoft's closing this thing. And apparently the 13th is what the latest report is pointing towards. So I'm curious, Nate, what do you think the following month looks like after that deal closes?
Well, one, thank God it's finally over.
Yeah, because although the FTC apparently is going to try to break this thing up. I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a waste of their time and money. Well, taxpayers' money, their time. But they're going to try. I think it's very difficult to rip Activision Blizzard away from Microsoft after it's been approved basically globally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this has been a talking point for such a long period of time now that it really just became mundane and repetitive. But finally, light at the end of the tunnel. As for what we're looking at in, the month or so immediately following this acquisition being made official, there could be a lot of changes. You will likely see within that first 4 to 8 weeks, Activision games being added to the Game Pass backlog.
Is it one massive drop?
I would say if I were them, I'd want to give it a little bit of breathing room where I would do a significant drop at the start, the first half of the month, maybe another one at the second half, and then another one in the following month, kind of space things out. But I would go through that legacy of Call of Duty titles. Go back as far as you can and add those games to Game Pass. So if you can do Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, World at War, all the titles that recently saw a resurgence on the Xbox Most Played list and even the sales charts, throw those on Game Pass. Get some of the Crash Bandicoot games, Tony Hawk games, the back catalog of Activision titles that are already in the backwards compatibility support system is quite vast. But I would expect to see the majority of those games added to Game Pass likely within the first 3 to 4 months once the acquisition is final. And that can be quite the momentum builder for Microsoft.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you can say we have all of these Call of Duty titles in our catalog now available on Game Pass, that's going to lure some people to your ecosystem and that service where they'll be willing to subscribe just to play those games again because maybe they no longer own them, they've moved on, but you have that bit of nostalgia.
What's the first game you're firing up?
Ones.
Let me know. What's the first game you're firing up? What's the first game the people in the comments are firing up? Activision Blizzard. The games are in Game Pass tomorrow.
Sekiro.
That's an easy answer. You know what I would load up? I thought about this. I would go check out the original prototype. It's been a while since I played it. I would just be curious. I'm like, I haven't played that game. I have fond memories of it, and I'm prepared to ruin all of them. So I want to go back and just see if it's aged at all, like well or what's going on here. So yeah, I'd fire up prototype. It's funny enough, they'd put on all these Call of Duty games, and I would immediately just start looking around at some of the other stuff because I mean, the Call of Duty games, they all feel very similar. And we played Modern Warfare. Which one did we play? We played Modern Warfare 1. No, 2. Was it? No,
2.
It was Black Ops. It was Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 2. And World
at
War.
It was Black Ops and World at War.
See, they're all blended together. No, yeah, it was Black Ops and World at War. Those were the two
I had
we played.
dismemberment.
That Sean really wanted that for some reason.
Yeah, he really wanted to see the guy's leg get blown off.
It's like, then let's go play Brothers in Arms.
No.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, but you can go back to the more single-player focused Call of Duties, like Call of Duty 2.
Yeah, Call of Duty 2 was... I feel like that was good because the Xbox 360 came out when it dropped, and the game looked crazy. Now you go back and look at it, the game still looks crazy, just not in a good way.
But it's a good campaign.
I just remember... They had the kiosk at FYE. We'd go by there after school because one of our friends had a car and stuff. We'd drive by. It was at the mall. We'd drive by, and you'd pick up the controller, which the 360 controller was still new to us. And it's going to sound really weird just for the younger kids. It was wireless, and that was mind-blowing because we were so used to having cords with our controllers for the GameCube and the PS2 and the Xbox, right? You had like those terrible Logitech ones where you had to have something plugged into
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, but like the 360 controller felt futuristic. And then you know what you do? You go up there, you get the controller for Call of Duty 2, and you throw a smoke grenade, and everyone would just be like, this looks amazing. There's smoke flowing from it.
Yeah, that smoke effect was pretty advanced back then. And I mean, when you look at the 360 launch in retrospect, Call of Duty 2 was one of the highlights. You still had Dead or Alive, you had Project Gotham, you had Quake 4,
Yeah.
which is not on console backwards compatibility or Game Pass, but it is on PC Game Pass. So there's technically nothing preventing it from coming to Xbox now because all the licensees are under Microsoft control.
Well, hold on. Does Microsoft fire up their backwards compatible team again?
If I'm Microsoft and I can, I guess, reallocate the resources back to the team, I would. Because
Oh, wow, okay.
how many games now are no longer under any, legal issue? Could you technically bring some of those Project Gotham games to, backwards compatibility now? Because remember, they sold the studio to Activision.
Oh, that is weird. That's right. Oh, that's strange. You feel like there is a lot they could do. I almost wonder if the team is then working on, honestly, just working on the next, like their path forward for the next system or setup or something at this point. So
I mean, that's the thing. They have likely moved on, but you have to wonder if this does, present any new possibilities. And if it does, you as Microsoft have to take a look at it and say, okay, this may be worth our time to reinvest and bring these games to the services backwards compatibility because they're going to come into possession to a lot of IP. And I guess you have to look at how many of them aren't currently available on backwards compatibility, like a Quake 4. But if you can make it a reality, do it, and then you include it in Game Pass, all of a sudden, I mean, overnight, you could, in theory, add hundreds of games to Game Pass.
Yeah, I feel like they get all that, as much of that as they can done just ahead of the holidays and advertise it. I think that'd be big for them. So
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
And you have such an easy marketing tagline of just every Call of Duty available right now on Game Pass.
Yeah, that is pretty easy. That is just say, hey, look at all these
it.
Call of Duty games. They're all here. It's the home of Call of Duty. That's it.
Yeah. You just do a quick sizzle reel trailer showing each one dating back to Call of Duty 2 and just boom, boom,
It's
boom,
the home
boom.
of Diablo.
Yeah, you
Diablo
get
games are
Diablo
there.
2,
It's the home of
Resurrection.
Overwatch 2. Okay, maybe you don't put Overwatch 2 up there.
Nah, we can forget about that
You
one.
just push that one off to the side. You subscribe and we won't tell you about Overwatch 2.
But there's a lot of stuff they can include on that service. I mean, Bethesda, when they added the Bethesda games, that was a big deal. But Activision is going to dwarf that.
I should have looked up the original prototype trailer. Some of these old trailers I'm finding are like extra crunchy.
Well, I mean, it was a different era of gaming.
It really was.
Marketing was a little more edge.
All of them are like on IGN. They're all like 12 years old. It's crazy to look at. Oh, here it is. This is the...
Some didn't age that well.
What? It's in 7. Oh my gosh. Okay. Maybe this might not go how I'm like picturing in my mind, like looking at this. I don't know. We'll see.
This
I feel like
looked
I could technically play
good
it
back
now,
in the
but
day.
It did. I just remember when you would shoot all like the tentacles around you, like it just explode and just hit everyone all at once. That was really cool. Well, oh man.
Wow, this is crusty. Look at
Hey,
this.
I'm downloading it day one.
Look at the movement of the character. Why is it so stiff?
Day one.
Are you sure? I think you had some people saying, "Oh yeah, I'd like to do that day one." Now they're watching this footage. They're like, "Never mind."
Oh, what was that? Why would you put that in the trailer?
What
That's enough of
happened to
that.
that poor guy? Why did he just get completely plastered against the wall?
All right, Nate, why don't you tell us about your
Wow.
Starfield wrap? Your Xbox, Microsoft sent one over to you to try out. You've had some time with it. You've reviewed it. What are your thoughts on it?
It's a nice little product. I mean, well designed, has a lot of nice detail in it. Yes, as you can see, that's the front of the wrap.
Mm-hmm. There it is. There's the front.
It has a nice little touches on it. Shows you where to put the disc. That is the left side of it.
It has
Focus.
interesting. Hold on, what's that? You got fan, power, and disc.
That's right.
Oh, it like tells you
It tells you
internal
the
power supply.
specifications of the Xbox
Oh,
Series X.
that's interesting. That's a
And
fun touch.
on the other side, it will list the SoC details. So it lists the up
Oh,
right
there it
here in
is.
the bottom. It shows the RAM, the how many teraflops it has, all
Seven
those type of
nanometer
little details.
enhanced process. Wow.
Yeah, all those little details. And yeah, ultimately, it doesn't mean all that much to an individual, but it's nice to see that they went to that level of detail to really flesh it out.
How's the fit?
It fits very well. It doesn't hug it tight enough that if you were to pick up your Xbox
Hmm.
with the wrap on, you have to make sure you have a firm grip on the console itself as well.
Oh,
Otherwise, it will
it's gonna
slide
slide.
down through the wrap. So make sure you have a good grasp on it and don't just try to hold the wrap and move your system because the system will fall.
The inside is felt. Is that the idea?
It's not quite felt. It was a little, it's similar texture, but it was a little more firm than felt.
Okay. Okay. What
So,
I'm picturing is the Microsoft, like the Surface books. They have like the
mhm,
thing that goes over it, like the cover, and it's like basically feels almost cloth like, microfiber like, sort of.
yeah.
Uh, I'm picturing that. I don't know if that's the exact term for it, but that's sort of what I'm envisioning in my mind. It's odd that they wouldn't have added any kind of rubber stopper to to the inside part, just like strips of it or something, so that the Xbox doesn't slip through.
Yeah, that was a little surprising to me because I kind of thought that would have been the case. But I guess they figure it's mostly just cosmetic. You're not going to be physically moving the system with the wrap on. And the wrap is very easy to take off. I mean, it is just Velcro on the back. But I mean, overall, I think it's a nice little product, especially for collectors or just individuals who are looking to change up the design of their Xbox. It's very visually pleasing. And I mean, overall, really no issues with it.
Does it do a nice
Um,
job, like giving the illusion that it's part of the system, or can you kind of look at it and be like, okay, no, that's somebody just stuck this to my system?
from afar, you would think that it is a case,
Okay.
like it's its own unique system, because it is a close enough fit that you wouldn't be able to tell from a distance. Now, if you get up close and if you don't have it properly aligned in some way, maybe that would disrupt the illusion. But
Hmm.
otherwise, no. If you told me right on screen that that was a Starfield Xbox Series X, I'd believe you.
Okay. Okay. It's what was the price on this guy now? Isn't it like, I don't want to misquote it. I think it was like $50 or so,
I
55.
think yeah, I believe it was in the area of might have been $45 or $50.
Yeah. So I mean that's going to be more in line with, if you're really into the game. People are spending some pretty big money on like the special editions and stuff. You can kind of
Mhm.
decide there. I mean, there's going to be a game, I'm sure, that eventually shows up with one of these covers, and even I'm going to be like, man, I need to get that. So like if Halo makes a massive return and they come out with a really cool looking Halo cover, then I mean, I'll probably be on it. Especially if it kind of pays like homage to the green. Do you remember the army green Xbox 360 that they did with like the orange
Yeah.
stripe for the
Yep.
disc? That might get me in. I mean, all right, you know what? I'll have to get the Master Chief cover then. But people need to start talking about Halo Infinite again to get to that point.
I mean,
So
it's coming up a little bit more.
I can't get anyone else to play it. I'm the only one who's ever on there.
Well,
It's
you
lonely
picked
on
bad
there.
timing.
Yeah, I know.
I
I
mean,
know.
that's
There's a
the
lot of
issue.
games hitting right now.
Yes, yes, there are.
You know what? Speaking of games hitting, Game Pass had quite a few games added, which we'll go over some of the ones that were actually just announced this past week. But Gotham Knights did go into Game Pass, and I felt inclined to at least ask if you tried it, Nate. Was Game Pass enough to make you go, you know what? I'll hit download on this.
Yes, I did download it. I played it for about 2 hours, and I'm done with it.
I figured that would happen. At least, you know what? At least you tried it. Sean also tried it, and then he got really mad that I told him to download. Although I think it was more of a Wii thing. He said it was just me. I feel like it was a Wii thing. It wasn't just me. But yeah,
I can
yeah.
see what the game is trying to do. I think there's a good idea there. They just didn't get to it with proper execution. The Bat bike is not fun to ride.
You do wheelies on it. Pop wheelies
Yeah,
and
that
like
was
go
about
around.
the only cool thing you could do. And
Well,
it's just not that fun to ride. The combat has absolutely no impact. The AI was really non-existent. It I just don't see it's a significant downgrade from going from the Arkham trilogy to this.
yeah, no, I would agree on that. Absolutely is. I
It
I don't know if did this start as something other than this, like what I don't know, this weird deep RPG, almost like a mobile phone kind of game progression stuff, or did they have something else in mind and halfway through they're like, we got to change this because it does not feel like something I would have expected them to produce.
No, I mean, there's so many little issues that really detract from the overall experience. And even the UI with the HUD, there's so much stuff that it's trying to direct you towards. And it's just not very engaging. And when the combat isn't that fun, there's just very little reason to stay invested in it. And even when I was doing some of the detective scenarios, why do I have to hold down the button to keep the AR scanner on? Why can't I just hit it, enable it, do my search, and then hit it again to deactivate it? Why do I have to hold it down and then move? Everything about the controls just feel as though it's fighting against itself. And maybe it's a nitpick, but even the character flow and movement, it didn't feel very fluid. There was a sequence where I was trying to move behind an enemy to stealth attack them, and it felt as though my character was moving in a box. And I was getting closer to the character than I was directing because he kept moving. And my controller wasn't drifting or anything. He was just taking these extra steps. So, I mean, maybe it's more fun in co-op if you decide to play it, but really it just feels like one of those games that it's fundamentally flawed. That even playing with friends, it's not going to address those issues. You just have more fun playing it because you're probably talking, you're bullshitting with each other while playing the game. And that's what makes it fun more than the game itself is an enjoyable
Then you gotta
experience.
find people who play it. That's the other problem. That's not easy. uh, I
Oh,
I don't know. That's unfortunate. Well, good news though. The next game from the Batman universe we have to look forward to is Suicide Squad. So, you know, the good news I get. It can't be worse than Gotham Knights. I don't. I mean, I don't think. Although, who knows?
I
We'll
mean,
see.
it can't, that's the thing. Like, I don't think Gotham Knights is an outright terrible game.
Hmm.
Like, I think there's something there that could be enjoyed. They just didn't go the proper path to make that a more realistic reality. And it's a shame because a co-op Batman game with this cast of characters should have been phenomenal. And I don't know if they just tried to do something more ambitious than was necessary, or they really had no vision for what they were doing, and that's why we ended up with this mediocre product. But I mean, it's on Game Pass. If you have an interest, give it
Try
a
it out.
download, try it out. You'll probably quit after the first hour or two, or maybe the game will resonate with you and you'll find an enjoyable little game there. For me, it just did not click, and I wanted to go into it and hopefully enjoy it because I haven't played a Batman game in a while, but no, I just could not see myself playing this game, especially not now with so many other releases available this week and coming in the next few weeks.
Hey, at least you gave it a shot. There you go. We did have some other games though that were announced for Xbox Game Pass with timing and what have you. So let's go through some of the games that were announced. Warhammer 40K Dark Tide, that is already out, and I downloaded it. Might check that one out. We'll see. Forza Motorsport, of course, is out October 10th. It's currently in like that early access period where you pay a little extra to get in. We have From Space on October 12th, and then Like a Dragon Ishin is October 17th. That's kind of exciting because we just had that kind of announced at Tokyo Game Show, and it's less than a month from when they announced it there. So that's one I would recommend people checking out just because it's like a dragon. It's a very different. I mean, people are seeing some of the stuff now. It is ridiculous, but it's also very different. And I'm sure it's a game that a lot of people have, well, kind of a game that people just have not experienced before. It's very unique. So, any of these pique your interest, Nate?
I will be playing Like a Dragon when it comes out in, I believe, what is it, 10 days?
Yeah, 10 days. Yep.
Yep, so I'll be playing that, and that'll probably be the only
You're not gonna
announced
try.
game for
Well, no,
Game
you're
Pass.
gonna try Dark Tide with us, right?
Still have to download it, but yeah, I'll give it a try.
It's 53 gigabytes.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it could be worse. It's funny we say that now with these games. The
Yeah.
sizes of them. What? It's 53 gigabytes. Who cares? Give that
Yeah,
a download.
5 years ago was how big is it? 60 gigs. Like, oh my god.
Yep. Now it's
I'm not
like,
downloading that.
That's nothing.
Yeah, I'll be ready in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Not, and that's just the start of October. It is listed in the URL as Wave 1. So I'm expecting some other announcements probably in the next 2 weeks leading up to Like a Dragon Ishin. They'll remind people, and then they'll also drop like the next 2 weeks worth of different games. So, and I do know, of course, we're coming up on something like Persona 5 Tactica. That's going to be part of it. So it's Game Pass keeps on rolling. Speaking of a Game Pass or a game that I think is definitely fitting into the Game Pass ecosystem right now, is one that might see a bit of a revival. Redfall. It got its 60 FPS update finally.
Hey, it's not that bad.
Actually,
6 months.
Well, I mean, no, hold on. It was like 5 months, right? Hold on.
That's even better.
Is it? I mean, that's something that should have been there at the start, because they also added some other stuff when it comes to enemy density, stealth takedowns, seemingly a lot of fixes to try to make the game just presentable in the first place. We played through that entire game at 30 FPS on the Xbox.
We did.
And now it's 60, and that's a game that really needed it, a first-person shooter like that. It took them a while. They got it done, though. And it's in Game Pass, so people who maybe passed on it a bit, you know what? You can jump in now and try it out. I don't know if the game is going to be that much better, but it should control a lot better.
Yeah, I've seen some impressions online saying that the AI has been tweaked a bit, and it seems as though there's certain areas that have more enemies, so encounters could potentially be a little tougher. And I think my big question with this is, if it took you 5 months to modify the AI, change enemy placement a bit, I mean, maybe add more vampires to an area, and make it 60 FPS, and you hit it in October, why not just delay the game those 5 months and have your Vampire Hunter game come out during the Halloween season?
That's exactly what I was thinking. This should have been the release day for it, or release date.
Yeah, because releasing it back in May, a time of year that you're not really thinking of, vampires and ghouls and ghosts, always felt as though it was kind of that misfire. Just hold it for this time of year, and to see them get the 60 FPS patch out in October just really screams you should have delayed the game 5 months. And I get the conversation, had that happen, would have been Xbox is doomed. What is Bethesda doing? What's wrong with Redfall? But you would have been able to launch with a much better product. And maybe those review scores likely still would have been low. Maybe they would have came in a point and a half higher than what they ended up being. Because as you said, we did play through Redfall, and I believe the Metacritic score for it is what, in the
It's not good.
mid to low 60s?
It's not good. Yeah.
I think I would have given the game maybe a low 7. It wasn't a horrendous experience to go through. There was some
Would you have played through it
cool
by yourself?
ideas. No, because I don't think the game was really... And it didn't feel like it was designed to play in solo.
No, which is still an odd decision. I mean, even if you added AI companions in there, you still wouldn't have played through it. Like if they had 3 AI that would run around with you doing their class, abilities and whatnot to try to back you up.
I think I would have tried that had that been an option, especially if I could have called on the AI to maybe do their special attack or do something unique. I think I would have tried it there. Like I had played the game in solo for that first maybe 30, 45 minutes. It just didn't feel really engaging to play it that way. At least in co-op, it did feel a little more engaging in a way. You felt as though you were going through a world. You didn't have to worry about being swarmed by a huge horde because you had other players taking care of things. But yeah, I think overall, they could have used these 5 to 6 months and they would have been able to launch a stronger game. Still would have been middling in reviews, but I think the reception would have been better than what we ended up having back in May in terms of conversation and discourse around the game. Now, I think this patch will bring in a slight bit of new interest because people back then did say, I'm not playing the game until it gets a 60 FPS patch. And even as recent as this week, people were asking, where's the patch? Is it even going to happen? With some questioning whether or
That
not
IGN article was
Bethesda,
terrible timing.
it was, like people were questioning if the patch would even come in. And here it was, out of the blue, unexpected. And we know they still have DLC coming to the game. So it seems as though that commitment to stay with the game is true, and they're going to continue to refine the game, give it new content, and maybe that 10-year plan isn't as crazy as it originally sounded.
It still sounds crazy. I mean, like you got to move on from this game. I'm sorry. They got the 60 FPS patch out. They promised that. They have DLC that they've promised. I think once you fulfill those promises, I feel like you move on. I mean, some of those stories we were hearing, it's just like, it didn't seem like they were that invested. Like once you hear about the developers not really being invested or passionate about their project, at that point, there's a more serious issue than just the game not being very good. It's just, how do you expect it to get any better if the people who were there working on it didn't even really care as much about it? I don't know. It seems like it seems like something you cut the ties with it. You start over and you get something ready now for the end of the generation, right? To then push into the next gen. I don't know.
I mean, that could be the direction they go with. I don't think we're going to see a Cyberpunk 2077 type revival here, unless the development team is now passionate about Redfall and they say, hey, we can make a huge standalone expansion, similar to what CD Projekt Red just did with Cyberpunk, where it's set in the Redfall universe and maybe it's a new island or it's part of Cape Cod or whatever in Massachusetts, and we get a really fleshed out experience, and people say, wow, Redfall can now become a valuable IP to Microsoft and Bethesda. But barring anything like that, we probably do see a limited amount of support for the game over the next 12 months before it is sunset and vampires take control.
It could just still be in Game Pass. I mean, someone might find it 5 or 6 years from now and enjoy it, have a good time after the updates and the DLC comes out. And that's, to me, it's just another thing to put in a Game Pass for content. It's not going to go away. It's first party. So I think you can leave it there and you're good.
Yeah, and if you can continue to refine it with some smaller patches and stuff, someone discovers the game in a year and says, hey, this really wasn't that bad. I will be interested in whether or not we see a significant player increase, be it on Steam or the Xbox.
Quadrupled from 3 to 12.
Well,
there was that was the story that was being run, was that actually no, I think it like went up by like 10 times or something to 30 or so. That was the story that was being run, is that not enough people were playing Redfall to fill a 4-player party on Steam. So
that's unfortunate.
Well, like I said, it's up to 30 or 40 now, so they 10x'd it. There you go. Big stuff over there. There is one thing though, Nate, that we just talked about, the backwards compatibility stuff, them firing up the backwards compatibility team again. I think there's something else they need to fire up the backwards compatibility team for, because Red Dead Redemption is 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5. And this is working apparently through the, PS4 backwards compatibility, because it is, I believe, 60 on PS4 Pro, if I'm not mistaken. MVG did mention that. So the PS5 version appears to be the best one right now for the Red Dead Redemption remaster. And I will say the studio behind that, they specifically ported, right, for the Switch and the PlayStation. They didn't have to touch the Xbox version, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And yeah, the reason that it was believed that they only did Switch and PS4 was because you can't play the PS3 version via backwards compatibility on a PlayStation 4 or the PS5. So that type of release made sense. You were bringing it to modern platforms that had no other means of being able to play the original Red Dead Redemption. But now with the 60 FPS patch, it definitely brings up that question of what's going to happen with the Xbox version, because there's no reason now to leave the Xbox version out in the lurch and being inferior to the PlayStation 4 version. And if it is, you kind of have to wonder the motivations behind making that decision, because it felt as though they had capped it at 30 FPS to allow parity across all three platforms. Right. And now that's no longer the case.
Well, Microsoft does have access to FPS Boost, I feel like that would be the backwards compatibility team or engineers who would do that. This seems like the time to go back and do it and be like, you know what, we are going to add that in, even though they haven't this whole time. I feel like they could have, because it's been sitting at 4K, but stuck at 30 frames. This I think is the time to enable that little toggle in the options to just tick that over. Okay, now we're at 60, we're good, because it does seem like an odd situation, and that's just because the studio who ported it, they worked on the PlayStation version, they worked on the Switch version, and the Xbox version didn't have to do much to, because it was just sitting there backwards compatible. So they saw an opportunity and took it. I mean, that might be something good even for their portfolio going forward. Hey, we got this game at 60 on these systems. Hire us. So
Yeah, it definitely begs the question, though, what's going to happen with the Xbox version? I would say logic would probably dictate that nothing's going to happen.
yeah, I thought about that too. It's like, well, hey, it's backwards compatible.
Yeah.
It might even be cheaper, because the online still works on the Xbox Series version. That's the only one it works on.
So you got more content for a cheaper price, but inferior frame performance.
Yeah, I would like that. The 60 frames is significant to me anyway for a game like that. And I still can't believe Red Dead Redemption 2 is 30 frames on the Xbox Series and the PS5. Even Microsoft is shocked because of those leaked documents. They thought there was a next-gen version. So it's not just me or anyone else out there who were caught off guard by this. Microsoft themselves were as well. So
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting thing to see how it plays out, because there's going to be questions. Questions are going to go to Microsoft. They're going to go to Rockstar and Take-Two of what's happening here, and I'm gonna be curious to see which of the three have an answer. Because if you're Rockstar, you probably default to, well, that's just a backwards compatible version. We didn't release a native version, and then you say, well, you have to field. Microsoft has to field your questions. Microsoft is going to say, what?
who knows?
Like, I don't know if there's a good answer they could give there. Ideally, yeah, they go back to the backwards compatibility team and they enable FPS boost. Because you kind of have to wonder whether or not there was conversations about that release and Microsoft. And if the idea was we are going to patch in 60 FPS on the PlayStation version eventually, that would have been something Microsoft would have had interest in when it came to the backwards compatible version on the Xbox Series X of the original release. Because I don't see them wanting to pass that up and being able to flaunt and market that type of feature on their platform as well. Because now essentially Sony has exclusively the best running version of Red Dead Redemption 1.
Well, what if we get a 60 FPS patch for the Switch?
Then if I'm Microsoft, I'm going over to Rockstar and Take-Two saying, you're making a native version of this for our platform as soon as possible. And come on, like, why did you not do this for us originally?
That would be wild.
That would be wild. And that's why when the original release happened, the idea of parity made a lot of sense to keep it at 30 FPS, but now parity is out the window. So you really have to question a lot of these intentions and motivations behind the release. And why is Microsoft now out all alone in the rain?
I'm hoping that was a random out of nowhere announcement, so it's possible we could get something very similar for the Xbox. FPS boost, hey, we've worked with them, we figured it out. You just toggle it on, you're good to go today. So that's what I'm hoping to see. So we are also looking forward, as we'd mentioned, some of the support from Microsoft in Japan. A certain game that has been announced somewhat. I mean, it's just basically like, hey, we're doing this. Hideo Kojima, his Xbox game that was announced during that E3 for Microsoft, where he just kind of showed up in a video feed and just said, yes, I'm working on it. It's something I have wanted to do for a while. The word was he had partnered with Google to make it for Stadia. Stadia's gone now, so we went to the next place would be Microsoft, because it's going to leverage the power of the cloud. Phil Spencer was asked, though, that was another part of that interview with the Lost Odyssey Blue Dragon talk, and he basically said he's working on it. We will put him in the spotlight when he's ready to talk about it. And part of this, Nate, I've wondered, is this going to be such a weird game that they don't want to necessarily want to talk about it until they can actually show it? Like, sit down, maybe even play a bit of it. Like, I feel like Kojima's going to do something really weird here with their cloud servers.
Yeah, I think it's a game that you really have to show up and illustrate exactly what the game is doing and what its ambitions are. I don't think you can really walk out with this type of title and do a Death Stranding style marketing of what is it? How are we playing? What exactly is happening with this game? It worked well for Death Stranding, but I don't think you can repeat it here. You have to have a clear vision of what this title is, how it's using the cloud, how the player is going to be, interacted with. And if that concept of being able to send emails to the real world you from the game is indeed something that he's still going to utilize, you have to explain all of these features and why they're so essential to the gameplay experience. And when it comes to Kojima, you just expect some wild things. So you really have to drive home the concept of the game in that first trailer and the first reveal. And maybe you do a little bit of a dev diary where Kojima can explain some of the things that we're seeing in the trailer following it. So that way it really allows it to be elevated into becoming that must have title from Kojima for the Xbox. Because if we're left with a lot of questions, or
Yeah.
we're just left feeling uncertain, you kind of have to look at the marketing and say, well, was that a blunder? If people are sitting there saying, what the hell was that? That's not what you want. You want to have people sitting there and have their interest be piqued and say, ooh, what is that about?
He came up with the strand system, right? And that took a little while to explain. I feel like he's going to do something really weird and it's going to somehow tie in the real world using these cloud servers, current events. And maybe the game is something that just constantly is being molded by things that are actually happening in real life. And maybe it can break the fourth wall where it sends you a text message or something.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. If she's using like the cloud to, let's say in the game it's raining because it used cloud information based on your location where that was the weather, and that is now the weather in the game, that could be a really cool thing. And Kojima has made a game in the past that used your environment to the character's advantage, and it's a little known title known as Boktai, The Sun is in Your Hands, where the Game Boy cartridge had a miniature solar panel and you would go out and play during the daylight hours to build up solar energy to use in your pistol to defeat vampires.
I'm
So,
picturing something weird like that. Yes, maybe not going
yeah.
outside with your Xbox, but something that would tie the real world into
Mhm.
that. So he's gonna do something strange. I already know it, and I am fascinated to hear about how he attempts to take over the world with Azure. So
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. You're really giving him just free reign to do anything that he wants. And it could either turn into a high quality product that revolutionizes gaming in a significant way, or it's going to be a product that we all sit there and say, I don't know what that just was. And I mean, you go back to Death Stranding and how much conversation was around, is he trolling us? Is this really what the game is going to be about? Or are we getting a Metal Gear Solid 2 tanker situation here where what we're seeing is just half the story? And then ultimately it was exactly what he had been
yep,
showing us. But
yep.
yeah, whatever this game's going to be, it definitely has people's interest, and everyone is anxious to see what the game will look like, how it's going to play, how we're going to interact with it. So that first trailer, when the day comes, is going to be of utmost importance to Microsoft, the marketing team, and even Kojima himself.
You think it's gonna be horror themed kind of again?
I hope it is, because I think
Hmm.
Kojima can really do something well in that genre type. But man, I'm also kind of scared of what he could do with, the power of the cloud, horror games, if it actually interacts with you directly in life.
I mean, he attempted to send a message with like Death Stranding, like
Hmm.
like basically banding together to reconnect. And then
Yep.
with Death Stranding 2, he's saying, should we have reconnected in the first place? I don't necessarily think that's going to bleed over into this project. I feel like this is a separate one, but he does like to do kind of that commentary on what he's observing in the
Hmm.
real world as this is happening. You go back and play through Metal Gear Solid 2 now, especially towards the end of that game with some of the plot points that are explained and stuff. It's little concerning how close he was hitting there with that. So I just I wonder if he has observed certain things And the thing that I was kind of wondering, because he would have the power, like the cloud stuff that can basically keep up real time with stuff going on in the real world, if he's observed the reliance on not only technology but social media. And if he
That
plays
could
into
be
that.
that could be an angle that he takes because that would fall into the kind of that horror genre, AI computer taking over the
Mm-hmm.
world, HAL, Space Odyssey type of vision, and Kojima could do something really grand in that type of, in that genre. But one thing is for certain, the first trailer we get will be a masterpiece because Kojima has never made a terrible trailer or even
That's true.
mediocre
That's
game.
a good point. And Microsoft is starting to tie AI in now. Oh man, it's part of Windows, and everything's connected. Kojima could mess everything up.
They could do a
I'm here
viral
for it.
marketing campaign.
Yeah, they could. They
Like the
could.
Xbox could also have some weird stuff going on around it. You don't know what's going on, and
Oh,
that
that would be
leads up to the
cool.
reveal trailer.
That would be cool. Like randomly, people just like they pick
Yeah.
200 people who they have data on that says that they have connected their Xbox account to Twitter, and they just randomly put this weird icon on their screen, and it just disappears and reappears at different points of the day and stuff. And they're like, I know it was there, I saw it, but whenever you hit the screenshot button, it's not there. And they just mess with people like it. That would be that'd be interesting. I hope they do that. That'd be fun. I miss that kind of stuff. They
You
used to
you
he used to do that kind of stuff back in the day. It's too hard now.
Yeah, it'd probably leak and everyone would know about it the second it hit. You want to go back to the days of like the Halo 3 I Love Bees campaign.
That'd be interesting if he would do that. People really want it to because they got to the point where they were trying to convince themselves that Abandon was something else, and it was somehow attached to Kojima. And like people, they really want to be
Oh
tricked
God.
without real like while trying to figure it out. I don't know. It's something that I feel like that is
That
some nostalgia
was
pull from back in the day that people still want to believe can be pulled off.
Yeah, the abandoned thing was just a carnival of crazy
I
where
know, but
everyone was just forcing this connection, even though it was never there. And it all began because of the Phantom Pain and him having that fake Swiss guy in the bandages. And it was like, oh, it's really just a dummy head, and Kojima was behind it the whole time. So everyone's expecting him to do that weird, wild twist. But you can only do it once. Because once you
unless
set
you
that
have the power of the
expectation,
cloud.
well, that's a different tool this time, but
Hey,
it'll,
they have the ability to send out an alert to everyone's phone at once. He'll do something crazy.
yeah, that's the scary thing. What will Kojima do? Probably nothing as cool as we just speculated, but we can be hopeful.
He'll start sending pizzas to your house at 1 a.m. Have it
Hey, as long
delivered
as it doesn't
straight up.
come with pineapple, I'll be okay.
It's all pineapple, not even sauce.
That's a
It's just
true
pineapple
terror.
and cheese.
No, that's just going too far.
Nate, I did want to ask you about something that's been trending more and more recently. Player counts through the roof. It appears that Cyberpunk has successfully completed its redemption arc because I'm quite impressed with the game now. I played some more of it just to go back to. I mean, I played through it. It's like 40 some odd hours to beat it one playthrough back when it first came out on the PS5. It is quite a bit better. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they changed significant amounts of like plot points or how the game necessarily played in the original vision. They cleaned it up quite a bit. I will give them that with the new update 2.0, and they have eclipsed 25 million copies sold. People seem really, really happy about this game now. I've also been observing that. It again, the player count's super high. Sales are driving up right now, and they also had the DLC that did pretty good in terms of reviews. But I can't remember, Nate. Did you play this game when it came out?
I did. I played it on the Xbox One VCR.
Oh
It
no.
it was a blurry
You
mess,
played it on that
and
dude. The people looked like mashed potatoes in that.
they did. It
Yeah.
was probably a version of a game that
Oh,
never should have came to market. Even visuals aside, it wasn't a game that really clicked with me. I didn't enjoy the gameplay loop all that much. I could see where the game was trying to take things. It just never resonated with me. So now when I look back at it and see all the the positive reception, the game is getting the praise that the DLC expansion is getting, it did kind of interest me to re-download it and play it on the Series X, especially with the next gen patch available. I haven't done it yet, just due to the release schedule of the
Yeah,
current.
I'd recommend it, especially if your last memory was the Xbox One VCR. You have to at least download it on the Series X because the 2.0 patch is free. You just get it, and it's a significant upgrade over that VCR. I will tell you that. But I was looking at this and I was trying to think, is this the greatest redemption story in video game history?
I mean, it's probably up there in the top three. I don't know if it quite hits the level of Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, that's true. They basically redid the entire game. But even No Man's Sky, that was a big one. This was. I'm trying to think of another game that got pulled from the PlayStation Store. Like in this regard of we're getting too many, they basically because they're getting too many refund requests.
Yeah.
At least Final Fantasy, they just took the game down themselves. Like, yeah, we got some stuff we got to figure out. Sony pulled Cyberpunk.
Yeah, they forcefully said, yeah, this isn't staying. Way too many refunds are happening in a quick turnaround time, so we're pulling the game. Eventually, it will go back up. I mean, it's definitely a redemption story. CD Projekt Red committed to it, and they stuck to their word. They wanted to earn back the goodwill of the consumer base, and I think they have done that. So when their next project is announced and is shown, be it a Witcher game or whatever their next project is going to be, I still would approach it with a little bit of caution just due to how Cyberpunk launched. And if the next project comes to market and it is in a fantastic state, reviews high, performs well, and there are no glaring issues, I'd say that at that point, we can look at CD Projekt Red and say, okay, you've earned back our trust. And that's what they're doing with Cyberpunk, is they're trying to win back your trust, and they're doing right by the customer. Just being able to do the free update on Cyberpunk on the next-gen systems is an act of good faith.
The game was like $10 at one point, so yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The game was so heavily discounted. They didn't try to go out there and say, well, let's re-release it on the next gen and charge you a full price again. It was, no, game's out there. We have to fix it because we know we put out a shoddy project. And here we go. And now you have the expansion, which I've seen in some circles mention that maybe it's going to enter the game of the year conversation,
I don't know if the DLC will, but you know what I think, what award I think that it should win actually at this point is the best ongoing game. Like the one that basically is like, this game's been supported well throughout this year. I mean, this update basically turned the whole thing around at this point, and the game is well above average, I think, in terms of quality. The game, if it had come out in this condition, which, by the way, this just tells me that this is when the game should have come out, is now. They pushed it out years too early, which is crazy to think about.
3 years too early.
But if it had come out now in this condition, it immediately shoots to the top of up there at like the game of the year conversation with Baldur's Gate and Zelda. I think this would have been it. Yeah, I think so. So it's they missed it by 3 years. So
I guess that would have been hard to communicate back in 2020 that they're delaying a game for 3 additional years.
Yeah, because it had already been in development forever. I mean, they showed, when was that first trailer? Like 2012 or something?
Somewhere around then. It felt as though a whole console generation went by.
Yeah.
And then, the Xbox One and PS4 generation was coming to an end, and we were still waiting for this game. And yeah, they ended up coming to that generation, and they probably shouldn't have come to that generation of consoles. But I mean, it feels as though, they are on that road to full-on redemption, and people are enjoying the game again. As said, the expansion is getting a lot of praise. So all you can do is applaud CD Projekt Red for sticking with it and doing right by the consumer base and the customers and such. And, bravo to them. That's something that we need to see more studios do. If you release a shoddy project and you can fix it and you're willing to commit the time to it, do so. Because we see
Also,
a lot of
stop
games that come out and are just forgotten. Yeah, also don't release broken games early. Delay them if necessary.
3 years.
Yeah, 3.
Wow.
3 years.
But hey, you know what? The game is cheap. I think you can still find it pretty cheap. Definitely below what I paid for it when it came out. But it's actually they sent me a code for one of the consoles, and the other one I bought it on because they sent me the code after I bought it. So I have it on the Xbox Series. I think that's the one I think I got the code for, and then I bought it on the PlayStation 4 like the night it came out. Yeah. So but it runs well on both. I downloaded and fired it up for like 10 minutes on the Xbox because my original save file's on the PS5. So, but it runs well on both. Definitely a cool experience. If you have not played it and you can get it cheap, go for it. Then see if you like it, because the base game is like significant in terms of the content you get now, and then you can get the DLC if you want to try it out. So, good stuff. Good stuff there. Nate, you played Forza?
Yes.
You played Forza. Good. I played a bit of it, and I'll explain why when we get to that part. But you played it on the Xbox Series X.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
We did the preview for it, but playing off of that preview, what have your thoughts been on the full game, I guess, at this point, as you've been able to play it? Because we were kind of walled off in a little sandbox almost of content in that preview.
The single player, I would say, it's fun, but it's mediocre in terms of offering.
Okay.
It's very sterile in terms of the main campaign. And even when it tries to do the car RPG element, there's just very little incentive behind it. Because when you think of car RPG, that would suggest that you have a great deal of customization options and control over how you're going to navigate through this journey with a car or your driving campaign, and you don't. It's all very structured, where you go from one cup series to the next. And with these cup series, yes, there's progression with the type of cars you can use in it. But even as you're earning that experience from each successful race, and you're going back to the car that you're using to complete that cup, and you're customizing it however you see fit, the way that you're earning these unlocks feels as though it's very structured. It's not as though you have control over it by gaining experience and say, okay, I'm going to spend my experience to buy a new muffler. Instead, you unlock that muffler by default. So you don't really have a lot of freedom in that sense, but it's the gameplay itself that's very strong. The racing is phenomenal. I love how, as I'm racing around the track, you do have those segment scores, which are between each turn. So between turn 1 and turn 2, you will be graded, and you get experience based on that. And these also help you really improve as a racer, because you can look at your grade, which goes from 1 to 10. And when you decide to customize the game's difficulty, if you go to the highest difficulties, you have to nail every turn, probably to a grade of at least a 9, if not a 10, to really stand a chance against the higher AI. But if you're just going for that more casual experience, and you have customized the options to something a little more, I guess, forgiving, you're not going to be too concerned with that. You're just going for that experience, and you're leveling up your car, you're unlocking, engine, what have you. And then it's fine in that sense. It just becomes very, I don't want to say boring, but it just becomes very, again, sterile, where you're just moving race to race. And part of this is kind of amplified by the very limited selection of courses that the game features right now. So you're going to a lot of the same circuits, even if there are slight deviations in the layout itself. It's just not all that engaging, just going from one cup to the next. Because there's no story or anything behind it. It's just your progression to win. And for some, that might be enough.
Let me ask you this, Nate. The car PG thing.
Mm-hmm.
I played a bit of this. I got a Steam key for it. Microsoft provided the Steam key as well as the Xbox key that you used. And I started to realize something as I'm going through. You're going to have to level up each car.
Yes.
To unlock. So like if you get a new car and you really want to use it, and then you want to deck it out immediately, you kind of can't. You got to level up the car, which I guess in that case is, hey, you get to know your car. But I was thinking, am I going to want to get to know the car 40 or 50 hours into this game that I've been playing. I know the tracks really well. Maybe
Right.
I just want to deck the car out and take it on the road and like crush corners and stuff with it. But instead I have to potentially spend hours that feels kind of artificially in place almost. It's I don't know, the CarPG thing. I like the idea of adding that element in because there's consistent feedback as you go through corners, and the progression is like always in front of you. It feels like you're every corner. Okay, I'm doing something here. This makes sense. It's adding on. I kind of feel like it would be better if it's adding on to a global rank for your account, like a global level.
Yes, that would have been a better utilization of this concept because due to it being limited to just a car, it feels as though the journey is strictly whatever car you're using at that time. And if you had a global type of thing, it could be, okay, I'm in a higher ranking now. I'm going to buy a Mustang. And because I have all these perks available to me or all this cash or car points, I can now deck it out. As you said, I can buy this engine. I can get these rims. I can customize it in this way to really soup it up and make it competitive. Instead, it's just, here's the stock option, race through the series, and you're going to unlock stuff as you're doing it. And that's the problem, is that everything is locked and you just progress through things in a very linear fashion. And I think it's fine for that casual type of experience. But if you're looking for something more in depth, the single player is just not going to give it to you here.
I do want to comment on the graphics. These car games look really good. I see people who are comparing Forza and Gran Turismo, and of course, depending on what they're trying to prove, they take the right screenshot here or there. I'm to the point where these car games, they just look good. I think we've almost peaked when it comes to visuals in these car games, where it's getting harder and harder to tell how they can make it better. You know what's interesting is the comparison that surprised me was Drive Club, where they got the 60 frames now and people were posting footage, and I'm like, the weather effects in this look incredible. Like, and that's from 2014. So I just don't know. Maybe it's just me because I'm getting old and I am becoming less and less sensitive to graphical differences and stuff. Like, I kind of feel like the car genre, it's just as good as it's gonna get, with minor details here and there getting added in.
I mean, visually, I think the game is very satisfying to the eye. And since you brought up the weather, I think the weather is one of the more impressive
The
aspects
rain
of the
effects,
game.
definitely, yeah.
The rain effects are amazing. I remember one of the races I was doing, we began the first lap with a slight drizzle. And by lap 5 or 6, it was a torrential downpour. It was thunder and lightning going on. And this was paired with the audio, where you could hear that rain clapping against the windshield. And you could just hear the intensity of the raindrops. And I was like, wow, this went from this kind of a bright, light drizzled summer day into just apocalyptical rain. And it went very quick. It was just a couple of laps, and all of a sudden it was in a whole different environment. And that's where the atmosphere that the weather effects give the game is really impressive. One of the sessions, I remember doing a practice run. It was early in the morning, so there was haze and fog. And as I'm racing, it began to burn off. And all of a sudden, the sun was just glaring off the concrete. It was almost blinding. But to go from that overcast type of day to a powerful sun over just a few laps of the race, it felt very natural. And I really like that feature here.
So the reason I had played it on PC, as I said, through Steam, and I wanted to try this out on the Steam Deck. Unfortunately, the game is not compatible with the Steam Deck right now, and I did get a response from just Microsoft and Xbox, their team, and they confirmed that it's not compatible. Basically, you try to launch the game, and it just crashes on launch. And according to them, they are looking for feedback, as in, do people want this thing to work on the Steam Deck? So I'm just relaying the message to anyone out there who is hoping to play this on their Steam Deck. Microsoft just needs to see that people actually want it there. The fact that it's on Steam to me, they should kind of expect that, but that's just sort of where we are with it now. They're looking to see reception and if that's something people are looking for, because it's Forza, and I know a lot of people are going to buy this and use some really cool racing wheels and that sort of thing. But I still think the market, with where we are at the Steam Deck, with what, like 3 or 4 million of those things having shipped out, there's probably going to be a group of people who would like to play this on their Steam Deck. So if you want to, let Microsoft know. I will tell you, though, on a range of video cards, the 3080 Ti absolutely demolishes this game. It runs really, really well. I played at 1440p through G-Sync. Hit like 130 frames the whole way. No problem, right? 100 some odd frames. On the 2070 Super, so I have another PC that has a more mid-range, lower mid-range card at this point. It was holding like 70 to 80 frames at 1440p, and I did move it from high to medium settings, and I also flipped on DLSS for both of these, but the game looks really good on PC if you can max it. Like, this is a game that if you get a new video card or you get a new monitor and you want to show off how it looks, this is one of the games you want to fire up, because it takes advantage of like all of this stuff, and it looks really, really cool. So it's at least on the PC side, it looks great. But that's Forza. It's out now, early access, out this upcoming week on the 10th, where you can just download it on Game Pass.
I will be interested in testing the multiplayer further once it is out for mass public consumption, because the multiplayer of the game is really good. It's a little unorthodox, because what it is, it's a scheduled series of events, and you qualify to compete in these races. So each event is held, I believe it's around every 30 minutes, but there can be multiple events. I think there's about 15-minute intervals between those. But the multiplayer is really good. It also has a rival system where you can go on the courses and you compete against a series of ghosts, which you try to eclipse their time and you move up the leaderboards there. So I think the multiplayer is probably the game's strongest suit. It's not that the single player is bad either. There's a few, it's just very sterile, and the car RPG just didn't feel as though it was fully delivered. But something that people should take note of, when you're playing through the single player and you're in the required practice, you can skip it. If you press the start button and you go to exit, it will say skip practice, and you can say yes. So you don't have to do 3 laps of practice and then race 7 laps for the first circuit of a series and say, wow, I just spent half an hour on this first race. You can skip the practice. The game will advise you not to, because you will miss out on experience, becoming familiar with the course, leveling up your car and such, but the option is available to you. It's just a little hidden in the menu system.
Okay, fair enough. I did want to ask you, though, Nate, now that we have both Forza and Starfield out, do you think this was the 1-2 punch Microsoft was looking for? Because obviously they positioned them just ahead of the holiday season. These 2 big games are coming out, and it's going to show the value of Game Pass with these big AAA games going in. The reception for Starfield was an interesting one. I think now what on Metacritic, I think it's down to like an 83 now. So some reviews have been coming in that have kind of beaten it down a bit. Forza sitting around an 85 right now, which I believe puts it right in line with something like Forza 6. And Forza 5, I think, was lower than that. So it's right in where you'd expect for the track racing Forza game. Horizon seems to be the one that gets rated really, really high. But these 2 coming in, like that mid-80s, definitely had people talking. You think this is like what Microsoft was kind of envisioning going into the holiday, having these as like the 1-2 punch? You think it came out the other side within reason for them?
Yeah, I think it gave the brand some forward momentum that they needed. It energized the brand with 2 quality releases to conclude the year with. And, Forza is going to have its audience. There's going to be people who commit to that single player and really enjoy what is there, and then they're going to pivot to the multiplayer. They're going to have their full racing wheel rig set up, and they're going to dominate individuals like me in that mode. And that's a big release for them this year. And when you pair it with Starfield, it does feel as though it is a 1-2 punch of significance. These are major releases, regardless of what their Metacritics may have come in at, because it has gamers talking. It has the community engaged with the Xbox ecosystem, be it on the Xbox itself or even on Steam and PC. So it's good for Microsoft to have these games resonating with the audience. And even if you look at the review scores and such, you can you have to really look at the context of the reviews, but then move on to see how the community is engaging and talking about a game. Starfield's word of mouth, depending on the circles you look in, has been quite positive with people talking about the new game plus and such because they went through the main game. Maybe they were a little underwhelmed by it, but they kept hearing all this hype about the new game plus and they went back into it. And some are walking away with a completely different impression. So that's a curious thing. And I'm really curious how the new game plus conversation may influence the game's legacy, not just in 2023, but going into 2024 and well beyond. But for Microsoft to have these two releases come out in September and then October, it definitely sets them up in a strong way when it comes to moving Game Pass this holiday and even the Xbox hardware itself. Because you have these two major releases that cater to two different audiences, but each one has been marketed quite heavily in recent weeks. I've seen Starfield every Sunday during football games, and they make sure to have those review quotes of, must play, transcendent, all of that. So Microsoft is able to now position Starfield with Forza in their holiday marketing and get people excited about their brand. So, I mean, this is really the first opportunity they've had this entire generation to come in with a little bit of confidence going into a holiday season.
Yeah, I look at Starfield, and obviously Microsoft they're trying to put out games that keeps people on their platform engaged in their services. And in this instance, Starfield is the service for them, and they're trying to keep people on board with it. And if I look at something like Steam, there's generally 70 to 80,000 people playing it at any one time. And for a single player game like this, that's pretty impressive. People compare it to Baldur's Gate a lot, but Baldur's Gate's you can play multiplayer with that. That just doesn't exist for Starfield. So to see something like that continue to have that kind of pull just on Steam and then on Xbox, it's always at the top of the charts. I feel like Starfield is doing its job for Microsoft right now and what they were looking for. Mm-hmm. And they'll probably put out a number like in the next month or so that's like 20 million players or something. I think at that point they got what they were looking for, and apparently there's going to be DLC next year. They're going to continue patching it. They'll have once the Creators Club stuff really starts hitting and people are designing their own planets, and I mean, that's going to be a game that's basically their next Skyrim. Like, it'll just go on for forever, basically. So I think in that regard, the long game, it makes a lot of sense. I believe one analyst had kind of come to the conclusion that it's going to make about $1 billion in its lifetime, and that being part of Game Pass as well, I feel like for Microsoft, they're good with that one. Forza is interesting. I feel like that's just a staple for Microsoft at this point. It's expected. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's going to have the same kind of pull that Starfield does now, just because it will be a game that people will play for a bit and then maybe go to the next thing or fall out of it somewhat. And like the hardcore audience will stick around. Starfield's the one, though, that I think will actually hold people longer, which is interesting because it's not the multiplayer game. So it's, I think combined, I feel like it did what it needed to do for the holidays. And then by next year, when they can start adding Call of Duty to their resume for the holiday season, I mean, if this would have been Forza or Starfield, Forza, then Call of Duty, like let's say the Activision Blizzard thing wrapped up at the beginning of this year or something, right? That would have been a pretty wild lineup to have that absolutely would have knocked expectations out of the park for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Starfield was the entree. And in a way, I think Forza is, I don't want to say it's the appetizer, it's kind of the dessert. It's a good thing that followed. It's the chaser. And as you said, it's not Starfield's not the multiplayer game. But Starfield is that game that is creating a lot of conversation. And as, Forza is that staple. But we've also had Forza Horizon games this generation. So people have kind of experienced that racing experience on the Xbox already, even though this is more of a simulation racer in comparison to the Horizon series. But because Horizon has more of that casual appeal, whereas Forza Motorsport is more for the simulation hardcore, racing enthusiast. But combined, it's just a nice little 1-2 punch for the brand. And, it's going to be interesting to see how each of the platforms perform until the end of the year and to see how Xbox hardware sales, see how they're impacted. Are we going to see a significant increase compared to last year, or are we going to see if they remain flat? That's going to be a conversation to have when the time comes. But then we also have to look at the percentage of Game Pass. Did we see an increase of Game Pass?
They got to tell us. They got to tell. Here's the issue with this Game Pass situation, Nate. The numbers are about to be fudged big time because Game Pass Core is now part of the conversation, and that's just Xbox Live Gold being added in. They're going to show up probably at the start of next year. They're going to drop a 60 to 70 million number on us for it, and they're going to declare victory like that. Like did it with Starfield. It's like, well, no, you just added the Xbox Live Gold members in, and then also added in some subscribers with Starfield and Forza, but it's not like it had that like 4,000% jump or something crazy, you know. Whatever. It's not going to be how they're describing it necessarily, so it's gonna be very hard to tell either way. But for them, and probably getting their bonuses that way, it's a good loophole. But consoles will be interesting. Console sales, because Microsoft has said that's the best way to get people into the Game Pass setup is through a console. So
we're gonna have to see those percentage increases in, Europe and North America in, let's say, in October, November, and December. If we see a sizable increase, then we can say, yeah, these two titles were exactly what Microsoft needed to get that shot in the arm and really get people to invest in their ecosystem. If it's flat year over year, I mean, that's a concerning conversation to have.
Nate, did you get a chance to play Assassin's Creed?
Yes, I played.
You did?
About 4 hours so far.
Wow. Okay, good. I didn't know if you'd have a chance to. This is good news. I am... I have to double check my time. 13 and some change. So like 13 hours, like 20 something minutes in is what my save file thing says. So I've been playing it more than I thought I would this quickly. And, you go into this, I'm thinking old school Assassin's Creed. This is very close to Assassin's Creed 1 is what I'll say. They really pushed for it. But it's taking place in Baghdad. It's following Basim, who is from the Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Fortunately, I fell out of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. MVG, I'm sure, will tell me all about this character and stuff in the Spawncast. He's disappeared a couple nights now, so I feel like he's lost in this game right now, but we'll find out on the Spawncast. However... where are we right now with this game? Because, the reviews came out and it was close to, I thought it would have been like an 80 or an 81. It was like a 77, I think, right now on Metacritic. And what was weird to me, it was throwing me off a little bit. Some of the reviews were comparing it directly to like Odyssey and Origin and Valhalla, even though they were trying to reenact almost the formula from the first two Assassin's Creed, I could say, looking back at it. And when I go into this game with those expectations at the $50 price point, I'm actually not that disappointed. I'm enjoying what I'm playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, what I've played so far in those first few hours has definitely been enjoyable. One of my nitpicks is I want to skip that opening film that they make you go through of every single assassin.
Okay.
Before the main menu comes up. I don't know why I have to sit through that 20-second sequence every single time I go to play the game. But the game itself, yeah, it's very similar to Assassin's Creed 1, maybe a bit to Assassin's Creed 2. There's jank.
There's definitely jank in the game, yes.
The combat system isn't the most refined combat you'll find in a third-person action-adventure game. I think the parry system could use a little bit of refinement. It feels, at least going from Lies of P, this one almost feels...
You talk about the window for when you pick. So in combat, you have your attacks. Your attack is like your right shoulder button, and then you have your parry, which is your left shoulder button. And you basically, there are two different attacks that'll flash at you. One's like kind of this golden flash, and that's the one you can parry. The other one's red, and you just have to dodge out of the way from it. It's unblockable. And the parry window is kind of sloppy. Almost, it's very odd. Like it feels like it's a really big parry window when it wants to be.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent because I wait for the character to flash, I hit the parry, and he missed. And then I
Yeah.
get hit. And then if I hit it sometimes too early, I parry.
Yep. I have basically tried to do a lot of this in stealth, as I'm sure the game wants you to, but there have been times where I just break out and start annihilating everyone, just fighting. Like I just start swinging at everyone, and sometimes that's not my intention because the assassination button is the same as the attack button, and I have run into a case where I accidentally hit somebody in the face with my sword when I was just trying to assassinate them, and then they alert the person next to them, and it's a whole thing. But when it comes together correctly with the assassinations, it's pretty sweet. Like, it is pretty cool. It has the one button assassination, whereas before I think Odyssey was the one I at least saw through to like the late game, but man, the fatigue sets in like these Ubisoft games tend to, right? And you have to usually be like a certain level to get those kind of assassinations. In this one, you're just rolling through anyone. If you can sneak up on them, you shiv them and you move on. It's quick, right? It's how it used to be. And in that case, with the assassinations, I think the game is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You can feel like an assassin again, where you are a badass, certified trained assassin. There's just those odd moments of jank where it's either the game isn't responding to the way, you're parrying, or maybe you miss the input to do the assassination by half a second, even though it's still shown on your screen. There have been a few situations I've been in where the game definitely wants me to assassinate the people, but I just can't. Or I'm walking down the street, and even though my notoriety wasn't that high, I'm being spotted by every single soldier patrolling Baghdad. And I'm kind of sitting, I'm like, come on, game, give me a slight reprieve from this, because this is kind of like overkill. I mean, I bumped into a character by mistake. Didn't pickpocket them or anything. I just bumped into them, and they alerted the guards, and all of a sudden I was getting shot from the towers with arrows. 3 guards were chasing me because I bumped into somebody. It almost felt as though it was a glitch at that sequence. But...
Did you get... Okay, so Ubisoft sent the code for me. They sent you one as well?
Yes.
Okay, did you get the Prince of Persia stuff to start with?
No.
Oh, really? You should have it. Hold on, you should have that in there.
Did you get the deluxe edition or the standard?
Oh, maybe I have the deluxe edition right now. They give you... Okay, so for anyone who gets the deluxe edition, they give you the Prince of Persia stuff. You have the dagger that slows time, and you also have the sword.
Wait,
it's really
your dagger
cool.
slows time?
Yes, if you parry, it slows time, and then if you kill them with the sword, it regenerates your health.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Oh, it's cool, and it looks like when you're running around, because you also have like one of the charms, sand comes off of it. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I don't have any of that.
Oh man, I feel bad.
I just have the
for you
standard sword and dagger.
It's actually a really cool effect, and it would have made me go, oh, you know what? I kind of want that deluxe edition, because this is like the only thing we have from Prince of Persia right now. And they did it. They also give you the outfit. You have the entire prince's like gear and everything. It's really cool.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that, so.
Oh man,
I'm missing out. Apparently, you got like easy mode going over there.
It's pretty cool. I just like the look of it, which you can also change like the appearances to match up with the weapons you want to use and stuff. But it's neat. It glows. You can upgrade it further, and the dagger's really cool. That's something I did like from the deluxe edition. And if you're on the fence about it, it does look really, really neat. The game, though, I can kind of tell it's going to be shorter, which I'm fine. Well, it's relative. I feel like this is a game you could spend 20 to 30 hours in, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Assassin's Creed really wants to be this 100-hour game for some reason. I just don't think it needs to be. I feel like this length right now for the game is fine. You could see where you can spend more time with it, because they give you these contracts that they don't feel like they're very fleshed out in terms of story or unique events or anything. They have the Tales from Baghdad, which one that's really funny that people have been passing around social media is when you jump off, like, so you go to a tower and a kid's stuck at the top. So in my mind, we're going to climb to the top and then we're going to help him down, right? We're going to be like, okay, let me hold your hand. Let me help you down. Okay, let's do that. You jump off of this thing, right? Like normal. You jump into the hay. Like, watch this. Look how cool I am. And you slow time when you do it. You know, like you get the whole pose. You get out. And the kid's like, that was cool. He just goes, your turn. And the kid's like, what? He's like, yeah, just jump. Just jump. It's cool. The kid jumps, hits this hay bale super hard, right? And I thought they were going to do a swerve where they just broke their leg or something happened. He just gets out. And I'm like, what happens if he just missed the hay? I don't understand. What if he just missed? It was such a weird thing, and everyone's laughing on social media about it because it is ridiculous. But that was the only one that stuck out to me. One, I showed up, and the guy was like, I need to assassinate these two to get for like my hidden one trial. And you just help them stab 2 guards, and that's the end of it. So you get stuff. You get materials basically to refine your gear. That's how the progression system works. You have a couple skill trees. You get skill points by completing missions or story parts. You don't actually level up your character or get any kind of experience. So they've eliminated all that deep RPG stuff that people were kind of getting kind of tired of, I'd say. I mean, it's when Assassin's Creed Red gets revealed and it still has all that stuff, it's going to be exciting for Assassin's Creed fans. But you know what? It's fun to have these side games. We don't need the 100-hour Assassin's Creed every single year, every other year. I think this is fun to have.
Yeah, I like that. It's a nice, tight experience. It's not in a gigantic map. I think the city of Baghdad with the outer wilderness areas is plenty. It's enough to explore. It's enough diversity. I mean, you have a camel or a horse if you want to speed up your navigation to certain locations. I think overall the package is quite refined. And if you are a fan of the older style Assassin's Creed games, there's a lot of fun and enjoyment to be had here. Now, if your introduction were these more recent Assassin's Creeds, I could see you going into Mirage and saying, man, this really feels as though it's a
very shallow.
downgrade over what we have been used to playing over the last few entries. And you may not be wrong in saying it, but I think this is the direction I want Assassin's Creed to go in, with these tighter 15 to 20-hour experiences that if you want to flesh out through side quests and such, you can get that 30-hour experience. But just give me a cohesive, well-tailored game, and I'm all for it. I enjoy these nice 15-hour games that aren't lifelong commitments. So I'm enjoying my time with Mirage so far. I have done the first assassination, and I like the diversity of the locations I'm going in. I like the approach to the missions and how some of them give you multiple options of how you can, break and entering a prison or whatever the environment may be in question to achieve and complete a certain mission type. I like how you can kind of recruit rebels and such to help your cause. So the game is fleshed out and it has a lot of variety in how you can approach things. And, overall, I think if you are a long-term and veteran Assassin's Creed fan, you will enjoy the journey that is offered here. I think it may just not quite resonate with those who are used to the Valhalla and Odyssey style Assassin's Creed, because as you said, they may feel as though it's a little shallow in comparison, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I think if you like Origin, you like Origins, you like Odyssey, you like Valhalla, those are the Assassin's Creed games, that's the formula, you're going to go into this and just be confused. If you have been around Assassin's Creed since the earlier days, like the Xbox 360 days, I would go pick this up because it might hit you with a wave of nostalgia of how it used to be back then. So that's kind of where I'd leave that. The story I don't really care much about, to be honest. I feel like I would if I had been more into Valhalla. That's one of the reasons I want to get MVG's take on it during the Spawncast, just to see where he is with all of that. He might be done the game by then. I honestly think he's just like completely lost in this game right now. So it'll be fun to see what he thinks about it. So, but that is our show tonight for DirectXbox today, whenever you're listening to it. We end up having to record later on at night, as you can kind of hear Nate's crickets right now in the background.
It's for ambiance.
Is it? Is it?
Yes.
Well, we stay up late sometimes to do the podcast, and we're getting closer to that 2 hour mark, actually. And I think we'll get there. DirectXbox is coming up. I think we'll get there. So it was fun though. I like the layout here too. Back on camera with it, having some fun stuff, putting up different videos and graphics and images. I think this is the move forward. But you got to let us know in the comments if this is a format you kind of like here with all this, because I'd have to continue the membership and stuff with them. But I think this is the move. So, anything else you want to add, Nate?
No, I mean, you're a big fan of Forza Motorsport next week, Game Pass. Dive into that multiplayer. There's a lot of fun to be had there. Single player is still enjoyable due to strong gameplay. It's just not a great progression system. Assassin's Creed, older style fan of the series, fantastic experience to be had there as well. And, we're going to have a lot more Xbox stuff coming up in the near future as the CMA and the Activision deal seemingly will come to a close very soon. So that will be a topic in the next episode. But everyone who supports us on Patreon, thank you for the support. You allow us to change the format, and you got to see this new layout due to your support. So thank you.
It's definitely due to the support. I will say that. It's yeah, this service makes their presence known. I will say that, but it's worth it. I think it is. So this is gonna be the format going forward. We might have to do an entire episode if there is a massive content drop just for the channel, like a kind of a spin-off video where we just go through all the games that they add and like point out some of the fun ones, like a prototype or something there. We might have to do that. It could be fun.
You and prototype.
Hey, that could be. I mean, we just go through the menu of Game Pass. If they add like an Activision Blizzard section, here's 30 games they drop in. That's a lot of stuff to look at. But I mean, many of those games we've played just because we're old. So it's like, especially the stuff from back in the 360, they could go back to the original Xbox days. Who knows? So it's
they could. That's true.
There you go. See, there you go. Our old age will be at our advantage. So, but that is DirectXbox number 6. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time.